Man, you already know what it is. Jay Williams, let's live life, and we're back. Realest gangster I've done time with. That's a long, long list when it comes to just gangsters in general. Now, if you would have asked me now what a gangster is, to me a gangster is exactly what I am. A man that gets up, goes to work every day, provides for others by any means necessary, handles his business to make sure the ones he loves are taken care of, provided for. To me, that's what a gangster now is. But in prison, that's the complete opposite. That's what a lame is. That's what they'll tell you in prison. That's lame. You're a cornball. That's a super played out. Ain't nobody trying to work for all day long for somebody else just to, nah. Dudes are frowned upon there. To me, a gangster, when it comes to prison, is a man that's not afraid of anybody. A man that treats everybody the same, whether they're 5 foot tall or 10 foot tall. A man that has no fear. A man that takes things to the extreme. A man that has and will take somebody's life. Penitentiary is packed full of those guys that want you to believe that that's who they are. There's only a select few that really stand up to the title of gangster, animal thug, Noriega status. Like, by any means necessary, they have no regards for human life. They have no regards for you, your mama shedding tears, flesh, bone. None of that means anything to them. Now, when I first started even thinking about doing this video, faces started just flooding into my brain, man. It's like all these different faces from my past started coming to mind. All these different names. All the way back to being locked up in Philly. And let me make this very clear. I met some savages while doing time in Philly. I met some dudes up there that had fought case after case after case, and somehow they kept beating them, which is very similar to the dude in today's story. I met dudes up there that bragged about what they had done, like it was like hitting a home run, like they got a trophy for it. Like, we get into details, pow, put it all over the inside of the car. Yeah, girl was screaming, pow, like dudes got way into almost idiotic form. Like, bro, you were fighting 2 first degrees, and you're in here just like talking about it as if you're legitly, this is normal. Real savage type dudes, man. Philly's got a lot of them. Especially when I was in the F back in the 90s, the rates of people losing their life back then was just out of this world, and it still is to this day. Philly's still a very dangerous place. You don't ever hear nobody say, we're going on vacation to Philly. Come on, children, get in the car. We're going to North Philly. No, you don't hear that. All right, everybody, packed in. We're going to the Badlands. Come on, Timmy, Becky, come on, get in. Yes, we're going to the Badlands. No, you don't hear that. But here in VA, where I did most of my time, when it comes to gangsters, there was a long list, and I had to pick one based off of what I knew, like the most I knew off of an individual, what they had done, and what I had seen them do while I was incarcerated. Lucky. Now, crazy enough, that's his first initial. So for a lot of my VA inmates, guys I've done time with, just in hearing that L, y'all already know who the person is. Most gangster inmates I've ever done time with, without further ado, you know I done seen it, you know I done lived it, so let's relive it. You meet guys the weirdest ways while locked up. I know guys that bumped into each other, became friends. A lot of times you become friends with guys that you're housed with, guys in your cell, the guys that live in the cell next to you. Because every time you step out for count or whatever takes place, boom, he's standing right there. Hey, what's up? I met Lucky in the hole. Lucky was back under investigation on a stabbing charge. And other dudes were talking about it, and then he came in. First, he was on another pod, and the hole was broken up into just like a prison. It's broken up into different sections. Some dudes that were there when he stabbed old boy up ended up coming back in the hole and talking about it. I had never met Lucky at this point. We were from two different sides of the compound. This place holds over 3,000 inmates, and it's broken up into 3 clusters with 3 buildings in each cluster. So it's like, it's massive. Like, this guy's on the other side of the compound. It's like living in an opposite city. But dude's back in the hole and told him, man, Lucky went in on old boy. I'm talking about, he was hitting him with the joint, and you could hear bones breaking and snapping, and like, I don't know how that dude survived. That thing was going out his front and his back, like, vicious. And they would get to talking about it was behind the poker table. Said dude tried to play him on some money. He told him, I got it on store day. The way gambling goes is y'all agree before the game starts how it's going to be played. Now, most times what we would do is you bring your money with you. There ain't no, I'll go grab it at the end. Now, the money goes in the bag, money being commissary. And you get chips. And once you run out of chips, well, you go get more commissary to put in the bag to get more chips. And if you ain't, you can't do it. Certain shifts are down on stuff like that. They're watching. They want to see you gambling because you're not allowed to gamble. There's a lot of things you're not allowed to do, but some shifts are big on the no gambling just because gambling can lead to very, very high levels of violence. Men lose their lives behind gambling. Men lose their teeth behind gambling. Men get hurt behind gambling. You lose, and you could just want to hurt somebody just off the strength of you just lost. Or so somebody does what we call ass betting, is when they're betting something they don't have with the intent of winning your money and no intent of losing. And now they lose, and you expect them to go straight to their cell and get it because you said you had it. Don't go trying to borrow it. You shouldn't be having to go try to find it. You said you had it. Go get it. And in the moment you realize that they don't have it, that's when you realize they were selling wolf tickets. They were ass betting. He pretty much played you. You came out here with the intent of robbing me with no money, with no gun. And I won, and now you ain't got my money? So whatever leads to whatever. Lucky ends up stabbing this man up, right? Goes in the cell behind him after the dude, I'll pay you, I'm going to get it, He goes and gets this bone crusher. Now, if you watch my most recent TikTok, I talked about a machete. And somebody said we call it a bone crusher. Big difference. Machete is actually, it's what it is. Machete, you swing it. A bone crusher is just a big, solid piece of steel that when it goes in, it crushes bones. I've seen them made out of parts of the doors, sides of locker. I mean, just, they're vicious. Just seeing the thing and just its form itself lets you know that, oh my God, like that's some straight out of a horror movie. So by the grace of God, this man lives, right? Lucky hits him all up with it. God knows how many times, but the guys back in the hole had talked about it, had seen it, and just in hearing it, it was gut-wrenching. The dude that described it was great at talking. He was great at kind of describing things, which was, a lot of people say he was ratting, he was snitching. Something happens, they bring Lucky over onto the tier, and Lucky gets back there, and Lucky gets yelling around, and the same dude that was talking about it, hey, yo, what up, Lucky? The man don't say a whole lot, right? Hey, what's up? And what they talking about with the charge, man? Oh, boy said I ain't do it. Her, so what, you ain't get shit? Nah, they gonna let me back out on the yard. Hey, he said you ain't do it. Yeah, you better say I ain't do it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't tell the people who did it. So if you're scary, and you think you can go to prison, you can run to the guards and tell them, oh, he poked me up, he did this and that. Nah, you can't. Because now you're a rat, like, you're told. There's no snitching at any given moment. You cannot. There's nothing that justifies telling on somebody while you're locked up. So the guy had to wear it. Stayed in the hospital for a while, and Lucky sat in the hole waiting to see what was going to happen. Is the man going to die? Is he going to pull through? The man pulls through and says, nah, Lucky didn't do it. Well, he was seen coming out the cell. He was covered in your DNA, your blood all over him. The man ain't do it. Explain to us why he was, man, me and that man's cool. He might have tried to help me. I don't know what happened. I had passed out, but I know it wasn't him. Who was it? I don't know who it was, but it wasn't him. He won't tell. They have no choice but to release Lucky back to the yard. I do my time in the hole. A little bit shy of a year. Boom, I come back out looking like Jesus, looking like Moses, looking like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Big beard gang. Bruce Willis, you know what I mean? Drop top hairstyle, nothing on the top, everything on the sides. I come out, I go see the barber. We had a barber at the time named Ash. Told Ash, get me right, man. Fix me up. Like, Like, damn, boy, you messed up in the game. I've been in the hole so long, I come out looking like a Holocaust survivor. I look like I had stage 4 cancer, man. And rest in peace to anybody that's lost their lives of cancer, anybody dealing with it. It's not a joke. But that's exactly what I resembled. I was malnourished, underfed. I dropped about 50, 60 pounds while I was in the hole. I didn't even look like myself. Once I finally got to see what I looked like and what they had done to me in the hole, it was terrible. But it wouldn't be long after I got lined up and got back into my little routine. They placed me in cell 120. That Lucky come into the pod. He would do the same thing. He'd been back in the hole about a part of 6, 7 months waiting on this whole pending investigation to see what they're going to hit him with. The other dude that got hit up, since he wouldn't tell them who did it, they put in for an emergency transfer. All we can do is just get you off this prison so that if there is somebody trying to take your life, well, it's going to be real hard for them to do from a different prison. So they shipped the other dude off, right? Lucky comes in our pod. This dude has been down since the 80s. This is what I do know of Lucky and what has been proven, what's like actually out there, nothing that I'm telling that's not known. Prior to his arrest for what I'm about to tell you, the man was looked into for 2 other homicides. He had 2 brothers. And in both of the other arrests that came with the 2 homicides, people that were supposed to testify ended up coming up missing. People would pack up and move in the middle of the night, and his brothers are suspected of having something to do with the missing people, having something to do with click-clack taking people up out of here that had planned on going to court. So from the ages of 18 to 26, he spent a large majority of that time on trial, in jail, fighting cases, and he beat these cases. Then his younger brother gets taken up out of here. Somebody smokes him. I think he said it was like 5 months after that, his other brother, which was actually a little bit older than him, ends up getting taken up out of here. So now it's just Lucky. Lucky would go on to, and a lot of this is stuff I found out since I've been out. Lucky would go on to stomp what he called, probably just his girlfriend, but his fiance to death. Fractured skull, hemorrhaging, all that. He put boots on her and stomped this woman in the living room until she no longer existed. That would be what got him his life sentence, was it sounds like talking about this shit, especially when it involves women. But to put it all in a nutshell, he had beat 2 prior homicides and ended up getting convicted of killing his girlfriend. He stomped her straight out of her head in the living room, and ain't no avoiding that, homeboy. You did it. Y'all 2 live here by yourselves. You ain't reported her missing. You ain't reported nobody. Ain't nothing happened. People smell the smell. Came here. Her egg is cracked. Your footprints are all through the house. You did it. They sentenced him to life. Back to the script. Why he's the most gangster. No sooner than he comes in and he settles in, they put him in a cell with a little young gang dude. Stay up off him and he ain't gonna have no problems. Don't bring your bullshit to the cell. There ain't gonna be no problems. That same night, he's back out at the poker table. And I remember sometimes you'll get your property that same day, and sometimes it might be the next day. Well, Lucky's up front arguing with the guards. I need my property, man. I want my commissary, I want my TV. I need all my stuff. So he's fresh out the hole, and he's already turning up on the officers to the point they're like, all right, sir, we're going to see what we can do. I'll get searched, and you go get my stuff, man. I'm not sitting in this hot-ass cell all day with nothing. Just came out the hole after 7, 8 months. You talking about waiting. I'm not waiting, right? There wasn't a lot of men that I seen that could apply pressure to them guards like that and make them move. They went and got his stuff. It wasn't an issue of being bored. It wasn't an issue of having to sit in a cell. It was an issue of gambling. He couldn't get out there and gamble if he didn't have his commissary. So they bring his stuff, and he has way more stuff than I've got. He's got way more stuff than 90% of the guys in here because the guy was a gambler. That's what he did. He ran parlays, he gambled, he did all this, he did all that. So he had bags and bags and bags and bags of commissary and just personal items and hygiene and just, the man had a ton of stuff. I would have hated to have been a cellie. Your cell would have went from halfway decent to living like a pack rat, man. You got shit everywhere. That night he goes back out to the poker table. Dudes are debating who's going to play poker with him. Everybody knows if Dame succeeds him, like he just came from the hole for pretty much butchering a man over on the other side of the compound. Now I'm supposed to go sit and play poker with him and just pray that things go good and that he doesn't flip out about something and try to take me up out of here. He gets straight into the poker game. Wins some money, goes on about his business. We lock down. Now, as time progresses, more things start to happen. There'll be fights here and there, other stabbings, a lot of gang attacks, a lot of robberies, a lot of extortion going on. The whole Lucky hit dude with the bone crusher ordeal kind of fades to the back of your mind because so much new stuff has happened that you're no longer thinking about what he did 7-8 months ago. So I remember talking to my homeboy just different things we'd always talk about. And he was talking about Lucky, and he's like, man, Lucky been stabbed so many times at this point that that's why he's as violent as he is. Like, he's been stabbed, like, bad. And you hear it, you're like, all right, man might have got hit in his stomach, might have got hit in his, you know what I mean, a lung, he might have took a bad shot. He's like, nah, that man's been hit. Like, that man came in the system way back in the day when the Wall was still around, and the Wall was one of the most notorious prisons Virginia had ever seen. It's one of those places where they're taking bodies out constantly. They're dragging men out. You know what I mean? Your chances of coming out of there were not that great once you went in there. So I'd heard about he's been stuck, he's been poked. Okay, a lot of people have been poked, you know what I mean? Large majority of the men in here at some point or another have been cut or stabbed. So you got two parts of the rec yard, and there's a bar with razor wire on it that separates, like there's a gate that goes from the big rec yard to the small rec yard, and there's a bar right there with a gate that closes, a razor wire on top of it. And we're coming through there one day, and Lucky's over there, and he's holding on it, and he's real wide stance, and he's doing pull-ups behind the head. Just doing pull-ups, right, with his legs crossed. Pull-ups off this bar. And he's got his back to us, and as we're approaching him, there's no exaggerating what I'm about to tell you. There's no embellishing what I'm about to tell you. As we're approaching Lucky, his back looked like something out of Roots. His back looked like something out of the Will Smith Emancipation movie. His back looked like he had been tortured. Like there were cuts, and then there were dents where there were stab wounds where like chunks had been missing. And this was throughout most of his back. Sides, his chest, his upper traps. And I just remembered, I can still see it very, very vividly, just thinking, that man has been through some shit. Like some of these cuts were, you're talking 4 or 5 inches, like wide, and then an inch and a half wide scar going down it. Like, yo, what did he get hit with? Like, this isn't 1 or 2. This is the majority of his back. And then a lot of spots on his front, and then he had certain tattoos on his arms where he had been hit, and I guess they sewed it back, and now the tattoo didn't line up. Like, his body looked like something somebody had drawn that had been traumatized, right? I knew he wouldn't be in the pod long. I'd seen his kind come and go time and time again. And I forgot to mention the part, the man's severely bipolar. So he can go from everything being okay, it being a normal day, to in a matter of seconds, he can snap and everything become chaos. He's one of those guys that can just take the sunniest, nicest day and have us all put on lock and just complete chaos erupt in a moment's notice. We knew it was coming, but because of his track record, I figured it'd be 1 or 2 things. It would be somebody owing him money, or it'd be the poker table. Nobody's gonna disrespect him. Nobody's gonna come at him sideways. Nobody's gonna come at him with a weapon. We see the scars. You've heard the stories. Everybody heard about the stabbing on the other side of the compound. Like, you gotta not be playing with a full deck to even try to stand up against this man. Now, there are a lot of men like him, but very few of that caliber, if you get what I'm saying. There's other violent men in there. Other men in there that bear scars. You see guys that walk around that have been riddled with bullets. They've got big scars on their chest and tell you they still got bullets in them. There's a lot of mean men in there, but there's very few gangsters that, I mean, are of Lucky's caliber. A lot of times when I tell you they were put in the cell with a gang member, you should pretty much already know where it goes with. The gang members know who they can and cannot mess with. They're going to go on the path of least resistance. Not to say they're bitch or anything like that, but it's easier to go after somebody that's not going to fight back than it is to go after a man that's just going to go all out for his. And when they do go after guys like that, it's usually to send a message that if they can take this guy out, then nobody in here stands a chance, right? So they get out there and they're gambling one night. Guys agree, we'll pay at the end of the game. I hear Lucky argue, no, everybody brings their money to the table now. We're not doing that, pay at the end of the game. Paying at the end of the game is exactly what led him in the hole. It's exactly what led him to hitting that dude, that bone crusher. In the last incident was, I'll pay you at the end of the game, not having the money, trying to run dope fiend larceny. You ain't got it. Now you're about to get it. So he's arguing with these dudes. Nah. We're gonna bring the money to the table now. You get your chips as you pay. If you don't bring you don't bring the money, you don't get the chips. One of the dudes at the poker table they're supposed to be playing poker with is a gang member. So my money ain't good. You calling me a liar? You saying that I ain't got the money? I mean, like, I got a cell full of money. What you trying to say? Like, you trying to make it sound like I'm on a game on you, like I'm broke or something. Lucky's not a man that argues. He wasn't trying to say the man was broke. He wasn't doubting that he had any money. He just had been through a very traumatic situation that caused him to almost take somebody's life behind them saying they had money they didn't have. So this situation instantly went from this dude getting defensive, like, what you calling me broke, to Lucky taking it like, oh, this dude's raising his voice at me. This dude's trying to embarrass me in front of everybody. There's certain poker games, when they take place, you're like, all right, this is cool breeze. These dudes play poker all the time. Nothing ever comes of it. He's a chill dude. He's a chill dude. But then you see certain people sit at the tables, and you instantly just want to fall back somewhere and kind of just spectate. You can kind of see that this is going to go bad. Ain't nobody at their table trying to take a loss. They're all over there with the intent of the come up. Somebody's going to get in their feelings if they lose. But everybody at the table, for the most part, has come to an agreement with how the money's going to be done, except for this one dude. And this dude's trying to argue about the money coming to the game, money at the end of the game. And as he's in the midst of just trying to, I guess, speak his piece. Now, this dude's a well-known dude. This dude put hands on you. This dude will push the knife. So just in having these two dudes at the table, anybody with any type of brain knows there's a very good chance that we're about to reenact what we've heard happen before. Dude standing there talking his piece, and Lucky comes across the table like lunges at him. I don't know if he was trying to grab the dude, if he was just trying to shove the dude. And when he does, all these gang member dudes, they're already on high alert. They don't want their homie out there playing cards with Lucky to begin with. Lucky's a savage, Lucky's a real gangster, but their homeboy's a gangster too. He plays poker, Lucky plays poker, a lot of men play poker. That's why I told you don't gamble. And one of the young boys sucker punches Lucky. Boom! Lucky stumbles sideways. The old heads have a way of coming up with weapons that the rest of us don't have. Now, I mentioned bone crusher in the beginning because somebody else had mentioned the bone crusher. That's what he pulls out of his waistline wrapped in sheets. It's a bone crusher. 10 to 12 inches long. Thing's probably 2.5, 3 inches wide. And when it goes in you, it's going through shoulder blades. It's going through collarbones. It's snapping ribs. Your chances of surviving getting hit by this are slim to none. The youngin runs up and steals off on Lucky. Youngin was brave. Youngin was stupid. Youngin had more heart than he did brains. He runs up and boom! I guess that's the big homie. You're not going to do nothing to the big homie. Lucky turns, pulls his big ass piece of metal out, and the youngin takes off in the direction of his cell. Lucky's forgotten about the dude he was just arguing with. He's now looking at the youngin that just punched him. He takes off after him. Some of these dudes got knives on them. Some of them don't. They take off in the direction of Lucky. Lucky goes in the cell, and no sooner than he goes in the cell, the lady in the control booth, she's already hit the alarm. She's already called for more officers. Everything just went from being peaceful and calm to boom, chaos erupts. This dude runs up the stairs. Lucky's running up behind him with this knife in his hand. This boy's got to run all the way down the direction of the showers. He's like 2 cells from the shower, which is in the officer's line of sight. She could draw a composite sketch. It's literally 10 feet, 12 feet from her vision. She's looking up. She sees the whole thing transpiring. She sees the youngin running the cell. The youngin's running to get a knife. He's got Lucky coming behind him, and then he's got a whole pile of dudes chasing behind Lucky. Lucky runs in the cell. No sooner than Lucky goes in the cell, the dudes flood in behind him. You hear the hooting, the hollering, the screaming, the ah, ah. Dudes start coming out. Dudes are hit. Dudes are holding their stomachs. Dudes are hitting the chest. Dudes got cuts on their faces. They're in there sticking Lucky, but in the midst of them sticking Lucky, Lucky is going ham with this goddamn bone crusher. Lucky is hitting dudes. Bong, bong, bong. And they're stabbing this man all up. To the point that now you've got 5 or 6 dudes that have retreated, and you've got dudes outside the cell that don't want to go in there. Young boy, as Lucky, when the first dude stuck Lucky turned around and turned his attention to him. The young boy squirmed up out the cell, never got to his knife, shot down the tier and back down the staircase. This shit would transpire for about 30 seconds of them just trading stick, and Lucky driving this big ass piece of metal in the dudes, right? They all run down, they all try to come together like, you got dudes in there that are asleep, dudes in the showers, dudes in different parts of the pod that wasn't even aware of what was taking place, and then had to try to get to that location with their big homie, with the gang members to try to handle Lucky. Everybody's done exited out this boy's cell now. Lucky comes out and this man is hit. He's hit. Like poked all up. Got cuts on him here, cuts on his back, on his chest. Like he's got stab marks all throughout him. And he's pacing and they're on the bottom part of the tier. Now you've got guards coming in through the side door. You got guards coming in through this other side door. There's two doors. At the end of the tier, one at this end, one at this end. They didn't hit the staircase, they hit the barbershop, boom. They're coming in and they got Lucky in the middle. And here he stands with this big ass piece of metal. Holes in him. Leaking. You got a whole entire gang of dudes standing down at the bottom. A bunch of these dudes have been stabbed. Just looking up at him. When you hear the sliders, you can hear the doors before they open. There's a series of doors that start opening. Slang, slang, slang. That lets you know the SERT team's coming. That lets you know the Men in Black, the Goon Squad, them heavy hitters, them dudes about to come in here and wreck shop. Anything with a weapon in its hand is about to get smashed out. Dudes are dropping weapons in the drains. Dudes are passing weapons off to other dudes. And the officers in control booths trying to keep track of the weapons, keep track of the guys. Knives are disappearing just as quick as they came out. When the guards come in, the only person holding the weapon is Lucky. Standing on the top tier, and this man is bleeding. There's blood everywhere. Blood leading out the cell. I'm all the way in the back over near the staircase. I didn't come out the cells, all this stuff transpired. When I heard the first initial words and the arguing, everything else got filled in by Ace and them. But I come out and I start watching. I'm watching Lucky on the top tier pace. And it reminded me of a wild animal. It was legitimately like watching something out of a Kingdom of the Wild. Like when two lions get to fighting and one's all mauled up, but it's still walking around and it's bleeding and it just looks ferocious. That's what this man reminded me of. This man was twice the age of some of them boys he had just got into it with. Was in better physical condition than the majority of us in there. Ran miles every day, push-ups, pull-ups every day. Took all those stab wounds and just like it was nothing. The dudes he stabbed were hurt bad. They took big stab wounds. They're hitting this man with ice picks and knives. This man's got a bone crusher. The guards come in and they lock down. You gotta tell me once, I ain't got nothing to do with nothing. I am not gang. I do not gang bang. Like, into the cell I go. Me and my cellie go in, boom, we shut the door. So now we're crowded at the door. We're watching out. Lucky's on the top 10. They tell him, drop the weapon. Now, he ain't got no problem with the officers, but he's been stuck up. He's stabbed. He's not in his right mind. He knows he's going back to the hole. He's already not going home. He's in here on a body. He just got into it again over the poker table. He's done stabbed several people. The officer's seen it. This is a Commonwealth state, so even if the guys don't testify, just based on the actual evidence, the Commonwealth can convict him. And you would think, what has he got to lose? He's never getting out of prison. Well, now he's going to go to a Supermax 23-1, where he's going to sit in that cell for the next 5 to 10 years with no type of dealing with anybody else. They're yelling at him. Drop the weapon, drop the weapon, drop the weapon. He doesn't drop the weapon. He's still pacing. Another SERT team, they're moving it from this side and this side. So by now, he can't run down the staircase. The gang member dudes are, for the most part, I'm going to say, out of harm's way, even though some of these dudes have been stuck and they're hurt really bad. Guards come running in through the bottom. These dudes ain't gone in their cells. They didn't lock down. Some of these dudes, I need medical. Like, they're not just trying to play it off. They've been hit with something real big. They start getting them up out of there. Even the dudes that have been stuck, the first thing they do is cuff them. So you got a big hole in your stomach and you got to take your hand off of it. Now it starts leaking. They start leading dudes out. They start spraying Lucky. He's just wiping this shit, wiping it. And as he's wiping, he's stuck. He's smearing blood all over his face. Eventually, he just dropped the weapon. Put his hands behind his back, said his piece with everybody. Y'all bunch of bitches. None of y'all can take me. Won't none of y'all ever be able to beat me. This shit don't scare me. Y'all don't know who y'all messing with. Y'all got the right one. I will see y'all. And from here on out, it's kill on sight. Y'all like, they let him out of there with all these stab wounds on him. I don't know how many. There was rumors that he was stabbed like 30 some times. I don't believe he was stabbed 30 times. I think it was more along the lines of like 5, 6. I saw a lot of blood, but I was a far distance away. Like, I'm all the way on the opposite end of the pod. So I'm probably a good 60 feet, 65 feet from where he's at. This whole thing transpired, right? Lucky went super gangster. Majority of those dudes that he went at it with, that came at him with them knives, that he was trading blows with, were never going home. Most of them were killers, but they weren't the same caliber of killers as Lucky. What Lucky did to begin with to get put in prison was a despicable act, because it was a woman. I don't agree with you even so much as putting your hands on a woman, much less taking the life of one. But they were a different caliber of gangster. These dudes were just, spray and pray, just pop off shots and hope that they hit their target. And Lucky had actually snapped and put boots on somebody and took their life. Like his name preceded himself. This was not the first time this man had been stuck. It was pretty much every so often, it was guaranteed Lucky was going to hit somebody and somebody was going to hit Lucky, and that was just part of his life. When I got to thinking about it, that definitely puts Lucky at the top of what a gangster is, man. I've been stabbed before, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you my truth. The first thing you think about after you realize you've been stabbed is getting help. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. Like, I need to stop this. Am I going to die? Like, you start to panic because you see the blood, you see the opening. Like, it's a very scary feeling. I don't know if you chalk it up to just how much gangster he had in him, his adrenaline, his mental state, what it was, but we all saw the holes in him. Big gaping holes, small holes, cuts. Shit didn't affect nothing. They doused that man. I'm talking several officers spraying him at once, and he has got yellow shit just running down his face. It's all over the floor. It's mixed in with the blood, and it didn't affect him. He'd just take his arm and wipe and just smear blood all the way across his face when his arm would come across from the knife wounds. He went out of there on his time. When he got tired, I guess, once he snapped back into reality, he just dropped the knife. We stayed locked down for months after this. Months. They did a full compound sweep where they locked down all 3,000 some men. They come in, they start checking to see if anything's broken in the cell, metal broken off. They're on the yard with metal detectors. They're tearing the lights out the ceiling, removing toilet bowls. They're x-raying you, x-raying your mat. And they find stuff. You know what they would find? Little stuff we planned for them to find. Little BS. They wouldn't find none of that big stuff. They didn't find the bone crushers, none of the real savagery. Nah. We just used to plant stuff to make them think they find something. Go stick something out there near the microwave or near the hot pot. Slide something in the crack behind the phone so that they've got something to show the warden. Oh, look, we found this, we found this, we found this. But all the real serious stuff, like what them boys came out with that day, they ain't find none of that. And the only weapon they recovered out of everything was the one that Lucky dropped on the top tier. Once it hits the drain, it's gone. Once it goes from one hand to another, and another, and another, and people in the crowd, you don't know who came out the crowd with the weapon. You don't know which direction the weapon went. Lucky, man. I see where he got his name from, though. He was definitely lucky. Because that man, like I told you, when I seen him that day on the rec yard, it reminded me of something out of a movie. I'd never seen a human body that had taken that amount of trauma. And I'd never seen a human being's body actually reflect that type of damage. Lucky would ultimately die in 2017 at Wallens Ridge Correctional Center from a brain tumor. Life is crazy. You can go through all this, all that, survive so much, and then be taken out by a brain tumor. 2017, he died at Wallens Ridge. Lucky wasn't a good person. I can't sit here and paint out a picture that I'd like. First of all, he wasn't my dude. He wasn't somebody I kicked it with. He was a guy I heard talking the whole, a guy I had limited conversations with, a guy that was well known, a guy that had made a name for himself in the streets, and that would lead him to serving a life sentence that he didn't finish up. God had different plans. I don't know if he was like, I can't leave this guy around to take somebody else's child up off of here. He serves no purpose, or what it was. But yeah, in the summer of 2017, a brain tumor would be what ultimately took Lucky up out of here. I wonder what they thought when they did the autopsy on Lucky. Could you imagine being in the corner and you roll in this dude that's about, I don't know, man. It resembles a weathered Wesley Snipes, but a little bit older. Chiseled physique that's just riddled with scars. And then there was the trauma his body took prior to going to prison from the gunfights in the streets. And I can imagine what his teen years were like. I can only imagine what the coroner that worked on him and prepped his body thought when they brought him in and laid him on the table, man. Damn. But yeah, that's it. Lucky. It was a hard one to determine because I've seen men do such terrible things. I've seen a lot of heinous acts. I've met a lot of gangsters. A lot of y'all think y'all are gangsters. I don't proclaim to be a gangster. I'm not built like Lucky. I'm not. I've been stuck. I've been hit. I've been through bad things in life. You know, I've had my gangster moments, done things I'm not proud of, but I'm not built like him. I'm not built to just get hit repeatedly over and over and over from different dudes in all different angles and still just be in just straight savage mode. Just, not putting myself in those type of situations. Like, that's why I told you, there's certain things you stay away from. Stay away from the G's, the gays, the gambling, the gangs. Like, don't do that. Lucky. 2017, man. Brain tumor. Life's crazy like that. There's a Lucky in every prison. There's several of them. Men that have no respect for life, put no value on anything other than themselves, are responsible for families mourning, families crying. What that man had done in the real world to this very day left terrible footprints. His legacy to this day is terrible. Somebody right now with pictures of that woman in their living room, in their bedroom, that was somebody's daughter, somebody's sister. I'm not exactly sure of her age or if she had kids. I just know what I've been told, what I found out. Some people have no place on this planet. Some people are too gangster for prison and for their own good. Now, real quick, I want to go ahead and say it because there's always going to be some little cock boy, some little Lewinsky, some sack eater that's that's a lie. I have nothing to lie about. I have no reason to lie. Before I lie, I could just start doing true crime. I could get straight into interviews. I'm not a good liar. I'm not a story maker. I tell the stories I've seen. Loving the TikTok, but let me go ahead and give you a fair warning. You get one shot only. You get up in there running your cock box, you will get blocked. If you're a man that hates another man, you will get blocked. If you got something to say that is just negative, you will get blocked. I got zero tolerance for negativity, and I will not allow it to exist in my life. I simply retell the stories. That's what I do. Heard somebody say, I did such amounts of years and I never seen it. Well, you know what? Just on the fact that you were smoking crack in the real world and you went to a level 1 or a level 2 somewhere where the violence was damn near non-existent explains why my experience and your experience was completely different. I was housed with the majority of the men that were in there with homicides and were never going home. So don't compare your experience to mine when we come from two different planets. We come from two different worlds and we were at two different places. The building I was in, they called the Terror Dome. It was the one place that struck fear in people. When they heard where they were going, if you liked that type of life, you were like, yes. If you weren't in for that, you didn't want that, you didn't want no trouble, and they told you where you were going over there, you would see it strike fear in dudes' eyes. You would see it in their heart. You would see them instantly like, oh, man. Please, no. I've seen guys fight the guards, attack the guards, bite the guards, all to stop from going in that building because they know what's locked inside them doors. Lucky. Most gangster man I met. Anyways, these jails, penitentiaries, these prisons, these facilities, these gangsters, they're all just crazy worlds in an already crazy world we live in. And as always, y'all know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to keep y'all entertained. Are you not entertained? And like always, this is Jay Williams. Let's live life. To all my real ones. And there are some real ones watching. Because y'all still watching me. And y'all know how we do. See you.